I was branded a thief for saving kids, until the moon goddess revealed the Alpha's biggest mistake. My name is Tatcha Jones, and they burned an Omega symbol into my skin for saving 3 children. Not for stealing. Not for betrayal. For saving lives. Alpha Whitemore wasn't just my pack leader. He was the man I'd felt the mate bond pulling me toward since I turned 18. The man whose wolf called to mine in dreams. The man who never once looked at me as anything more than a weak, disposable Omega. And when 3 pups went missing during a rogue attack, when I found them bleeding and terrified in the dead lands, when I fought off 4 rogues with my bare hands and carried those children home on my back, he had a choice to make. Believe me. Or believe the lies his beta's mate whispered in his ear. He chose the lies. But they didn't just exile me. That would have been mercy. No, they performed a public branding ceremony in front of the entire pack. They burned that glowing red Omega symbol into my collarbone while I screamed. They stripped me of my rank, my belongings, my name. They cast me into the Deadlands where rogues hunt and Omegas die within days. Here's what Alpha Whitemore didn't know. I wasn't just any Omega. I had a gift I'd hidden my entire life. A power that had been sleeping, waiting for the moment I needed it most. Healing. Not just wounds. But myself. My spirit. My will to survive. And in those Deadlands, while my body screamed and my soul raged, something found me in the darkness. Not a rogue pack. Not death. The moon goddess herself. She appeared before me on the 3rd night. And she told me a truth that would destroy everything White thought he knew. I was his fated mate. The brand he burned into my skin had cursed him, cursed the pack, cursed every wolf who stood silent while injustice was done. And now he had 3 moon cycles to find me, to kneel before me, to beg for forgiveness. Or everyone he loved would die. My name is Tatcha Jones. I'm 24 years old. And I just became the most dangerous thing in these woods. This is the story of how my Alpha destroyed me to protect his pride. How I survived what should have killed me. And how he came crawling back when the moon goddess made him pay. This is also the story of Whitemore. The Alpha who thought Omegas were beneath him. The man who's about to learn that some mistakes can't be fixed with power or commands. Only with truth, humility, and blood. This is the story of how the weak became the reckoning. And how sometimes, the greatest threat to a pack isn't the enemy outside, it's the injustice within. Let me take you back to the beginning. To the day I found those children. To the day I learned that being right means nothing when the powerful have already decided you're guilty. Before we go any further, if you're drawn to stories about underdogs who refuse to stay down, about justice delayed but never denied, about wolves who discover they're stronger than anyone ever told them, hit that subscribe button. Because my journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens when an Alpha realizes he branded his own soulmate. Trust me, the reckoning is worth it. It started with screaming. I was on a supply run to the eastern border, the area where our pack territory met the Deadlands. Nobody liked going there. The air smelled wrong, like decay and old blood. The trees grew twisted and dark. And the rogues, the wolves who'd been cast out from their packs or born into nothing, they hunted there. But I was Omega. And Omegas got the jobs nobody else wanted. I was checking the boundary markers, making sure they were still standing, when I heard it. High-pitched, terrified, the kind of sound that goes straight through your chest and squeezes your heart. Children crying. My wolf surged forward in my mind, frantic. I dropped the supply bag and ran toward the sound, branches whipping my face, thorns tearing at my clothes. I didn't think. I just moved. And then I saw them. 3 pups. Maybe 4, 5, and 7 years old. Huddled together against a fallen tree, covered in blood and dirt. Their clothes were torn. The oldest one, a little girl with matted blonde hair, had claw marks across her shoulder. The middle child, a boy, was holding his arm at a wrong angle. broken. And the smallest, a tiny thing with dark curls, was barely conscious. Surrounding them were 4 rogues. They were in human form, but barely. Their eyes were yellow, feral. Their teeth were elongated, caught between human and wolf. They were laughing, circling the children like they were prey. Like this was a game. One of them, a massive man with scars across his face, reached down and grabbed the oldest girl by her hair. She screamed. And something in me snapped. I didn't shift. I couldn't. Omegas have weak wolves. Our shifts are slow, painful, incomplete. We're not built for fighting. We're built for submission, for supporting the pack, for staying quiet and out of the way. But I had something else. I had rage. I launched myself at the scarred rogue, hitting him full force in the ribs. He wasn't expecting it. Nobody expects an Omega to attack. He went down, and I went with him, my fists connecting with his face over and over until my knuckles split and bled. The other 3 rogues turned on me immediately. Claws raked across my ribs. Teeth sank into my shoulder. Pain exploded through my body, white-hot and blinding. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because behind me, those children were watching. And I'd already lost one child I couldn't protect. My sister. Lily. Dead at 16 in a rogue attack while I hid like a coward. Not again. Never again. I grabbed a fallen branch and swung it like a club, catching one rogue across the temple. He dropped. I drove my knee into another's stomach, then clawed at his eyes until he stumbled back howling. The third one grabbed me from behind, his arm around my throat, cutting off my air. I bit down on his forearm, tasting blood and dirt and fury. He released me with a curse. I spun and kicked him in the knee. Something cracked. He went down. The scarred one was getting up, murder in his eyes. But I was already moving. I tackled him again, this time getting my hands around a rock. I brought it down on his skull once. Twice. 3 times. He stopped moving. The other rogues looked at me, at their unconscious companions, and made a choice. They ran. I stood there, swaying, blood pouring from the gashes in my ribs and shoulder. My vision was blurry. My hands were shaking. But the children were safe. I turned to them, tried to smile through the pain. The oldest girl was crying. The boy was staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. The smallest one had passed out. I need to heal them, I thought. But not here. Not where more rogues could come. I stumbled over to them, checked their injuries. The girl's shoulder was deep but not life-threatening. The boy's arm was definitely broken. The little one had a head wound, bleeding but not critical. I could stabilize them. I had to. I pressed my hands to the girl's shoulder first, closed my eyes, and let the power flow. It wasn't much. Not like the healers in the pack who could mend broken bones in minutes. But I could stop bleeding. I could ease pain. I could keep them alive long enough to get home. Warmth spread from my palms into her skin. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. The girl gasped, her eyes going wide. I moved to the boy next, carefully straightening his arm. He whimpered, but when I touched him, the pain in his face eased. The bone wasn't healed, but it was set. He'd live. The smallest one was the hardest. The head wound was worse than I thought. I held my hands over her skull, pouring everything I had into her. Come on, I thought desperately. Come on, baby, stay with me. Her breathing steadied. Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment, confused and scared, then closed again. But she was alive. I sat back, exhausted. My own wounds were screaming at me, but I ignored them. I had to get these children home. I had to get them to safety. I tried to stand and almost collapsed. My legs wouldn't hold me. Too much blood loss. Too much pain. But I couldn't stop now. I shifted partially, just enough to give me strength. My wolf was weak, but she was there, lending me what little she had. I gathered the 3 children in my arms, all of them, and started walking. 5 miles. That's how far I was from the pack gates. 5 miles through rough terrain, carrying 3 injured children, bleeding from multiple wounds, running on pure adrenaline and stubbornness. I don't remember most of the journey. I remember stumbling. I remember the girl whispering "thank you" over and over. I remember the boy crying quietly. I remember thinking if I could just make it to the gates, everything would be okay. I was wrong. I stumbled through the gates at dawn, barely conscious. Pack warriors surrounded me immediately, their weapons drawn. I tried to speak, to explain, but my voice came out as a rasp. I saved them, I wanted to say. I brought them home. But then I heard a voice I knew. Vivian. The beta's mate. She was screaming, hysterical, pointing at me. She took them. She kidnapped them. Look at her, covered in blood. She hurt them. I tried to shake my head, tried to protest, but the children were being pulled from my arms. The warriors were grabbing me, forcing me to my knees. Silver cuffs snapped around my wrists, burning my skin. No, I tried to say. No, you don't understand. But then I saw him. Alpha White Moore. Standing at the top of the steps, his face carved from stone, his ice blue eyes cold and distant. He looked at me like I was nothing. Like I was garbage. Take her to the holding cells, he said, his voice flat. We'll deal with this at tonight's council. And just like that, I went from hero to prisoner. The cell was small, dark, and cold. The silver cuffs stayed on, burning into my wrists, keeping me weak. I couldn't heal myself. I couldn't even shift enough to ease the pain. I sat in the corner, bleeding, and waited. Hours passed. I could hear the pack moving above me, their voices muffled through the stone. I tried to reach out through the pack bond, the mental connection that tied all of us together. I tried to find White, to make him hear me. But he'd blocked me out completely. Like I didn't exist. By the time they came for me, I'd lost a lot of blood. I could barely stand. 2 warriors dragged me up the stairs, through the corridors, into the council chamber. The room was packed. Every elder, every high-ranking wolf, dozens of pack members watching from the sides. And there, in the center, on the raised alpha throne, sat White. He still wouldn't look at me. They forced me to my knees in front of him. The silver cuffs bit deeper. I could feel my wolf whimpering, retreating into the back of my mind. Vivian stood to the side, her face a mask of grief and rage. The children's parents were there too, holding each other, tears streaming down their faces. I wanted to tell them I saved their children. I wanted to explain. But the moment I opened my mouth, White spoke. Silence. His alpha command washed over me like a physical blow. My jaw snapped shut. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Tatcha Jones, he said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. You stand accused of kidnapping 3 pack pups with intent to extort ransom. How do you plead? I tried to shake my head, tried to force words past the command, but it was useless. The trial was a mockery. A parade of lies. Vivian testified first. She's been acting strange for weeks, she said, her voice breaking. Always sneaking off to the borders. Always asking questions about the children's routines. I saw her near the dead lands with a bag. I think she was planning this. Lie. All lies. Another wolf testified. I heard her asking about ransom demands once. She wanted to know how much an alpha would pay for his pack's children. Another lie. I'd never said anything like that. The children's parents spoke, their voices raw with grief and anger. Our babies were missing for hours. They came back bleeding and terrified. Whoever did this deserves to die. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them I was the one who saved their babies. But the Alpha Command still held me silent. Finally, they brought in the children. The oldest girl, the one I'd stopped the bleeding for, stood in front of the council. She was bandaged, pale, shaking. What happened? The lead elder asked gently. She looked at me, her eyes wide and confused. I don't know, she whispered. I remember rogues. And then, she was there. The lady. She was fighting them. See? I wanted to shout. See? I was fighting the rogues, not with them. But Vivian interrupted. She probably staged the whole thing, she said coldly. Hired rogues to make it look like a rescue. Classic manipulation tactic. The room erupted in angry murmurs. The elder called for order. And then White stood. The room went silent immediately. Every eye turned to him. He walked down from his throne, slow and deliberate, until he was standing right in front of me. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked me in the eyes. And there was nothing there. No recognition. No doubt. Just cold judgment. Tatcha Jones, he said quietly. You have been found guilty of kidnapping and conspiracy to extort. Under Pack law, the punishment for crimes against children is death. My heart stopped. However, he continued, his voice empty of emotion, I am showing mercy. Instead of execution, you will be branded as a criminal and exiled. You will be cast into the dead lands. If you ever return, you will be killed on sight. The room was spinning. This couldn't be happening. The branding ceremony will take place at dawn, White said. Take her back to the cells. They dragged me away, but I kept my eyes on him, searching for any sign that he knew the truth. Any hint of doubt. But there was nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in that cell, my wounds festering, my wolf dying inside me, and I felt something break. Not my body. Not my spirit. The bond. The mate bond I'd felt pulling me toward White since I turned 18. The bond I'd never told him about because Omegas don't get to choose their mates. Alphas do. I felt it fraying, tearing, like a rope being pulled too tight. And I whispered into the darkness, you'll regret this, White more. I don't know how. I don't know when. But you will. Dawn came too quickly. They dragged me to the Pack Square. It was tradition, apparently. Public brandings. Public shamings. Make an example out of the criminal so everyone else stays in line. Hundreds of wolves gathered to watch. I saw familiar faces. People I'd grown up with. People I'd helped, healed, supported. And they all looked at me with disgust. The branding iron was already heating in a fire pit. The Omega symbol, glowing red-hot. White stood beside it, his face blank. Under Pack law, the Alpha had to perform the branding himself. A symbolic act. The leader marking the criminal. They stripped off my shirt, exposing my collarbone. The warriors held me down, forced me to my knees. White picked up the iron. For just a second, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hesitation. Doubt. But then it was gone. He pressed the iron to my skin. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Not just physical. This was deeper. This was soul deep. The Omega symbol burned into my collarbone, and with it, the last thread of the mate bond snapped completely. I screamed. I couldn't help it. I screamed until my voice gave out, until there was nothing left but a raw, broken sound. When he finally pulled the iron away, I collapsed. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. My vision went dark at the edges. White looked down at me, and I looked up at him. And I whispered, barely audible, you'll regret this. His jaw tightened. But he said nothing. They hauled me to my feet, gave me one canteen of water, and pushed me through the gates into the dead lands. The gates slammed shut behind me. I stood there, swaying, the brand on my collarbone burning like fire. And then I collapsed into the dirt, broken but still breathing. If your heart is pounding right now, if you're screaming at your screen for White to open his eyes, if you need to know how I survive what comes next, drop a comment telling me what you'd do if you were me. Would you seek revenge? Would you try to prove your innocence? Or would you disappear and let them all suffer? And don't forget to subscribe, because the moon goddess is about to enter this story, and everything White thinks he knows is about to shatter. I don't remember crawling into the cave. I don't remember how far I made it before my body gave out completely. All I remember is darkness, pain, and the smell of my own burned flesh. When I woke up, it was night. The full moon hung low in the sky, so bright it hurt to look at. My entire body was on fire. The brand on my collarbone throbbed with every heartbeat. The slashes on my ribs had reopened. The bite on my shoulder was infected. I was dying. I could feel it. But something in me refused to give up. I dragged myself deeper into the cave, away from the entrance where predators could find me. My hands left bloody streaks on the stone. My wolf was silent, too weak to even whimper. Water. I needed water. I found a small stream trickling through a crack in the rock. I cupped my shaking hands and drank. The water tasted bitter, poisoned probably, but I didn't care. I was going to die anyway. Except I didn't. Instead, I felt my power stir. Weak, barely there, but present. The healing gift I'd hidden my whole life, the one I'd used to save those children, it was still there. I pressed my hand to my ribs, focused everything I had on closing the wounds. It was slow, agonizing work. Every cell I repaired felt like another piece of my soul being torn away. But gradually, the bleeding stopped. The infection receded. The bite mark on my shoulder scabbed over. But the brand wouldn't heal. No matter what I did, no matter how much power I poured into it, the Omega symbol stayed. Burned into my skin. Permanent. A mark of my shame. Except it wasn't shame. Not anymore. It was proof. Proof that I survived what should have killed me. Proof that I was stronger than they thought. I spent the first day in that cave, healing myself piece by piece. I ate the rabbit I managed to catch with a makeshift trap. I purified more water. I slept in fitful bursts, always listening for rogues. On the second day, they found me. 3 rogues, all male, all in human form. They stood at the entrance of my cave, blocking the light. I pressed myself against the back wall, my heart hammering. The one in front, a lean man with long dark hair and scars across his chest, tilted his head. "You're the Omega they cast out." I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "We heard about you. Branded for kidnapping. Left to die." I found my voice, raw and broken. "I didn't kidnap anyone. I saved them." He smiled, but it wasn't cruel. It was almost sad. They always have an excuse, don't they? The ones who cast us out. They always have a reason why we deserved it. I stared at him. "You're rogues." He nodded. "We're wolves your packs didn't want. Criminals, rebels, orphans. The unwanted." He crouched down to my level. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What do you mean?" "You have 2 choices," he said. "Die here, alone, proving them right. Or survive. Get stronger. Make them regret ever letting you go." I looked at him, at the other 2 rogues watching silently behind him. "Why do you care?" "Because we've all been where you are," he said quietly. "And some of us chose to survive." His eyes glinted in the dim light. "So what's it going to be, Omega?" I thought about White. About Vivian. About the pack that stood and watched while I was branded. About the children I saved who couldn't even speak up for me. And I made my choice. I'm going to survive. The rogue smiled. Good. Then let's get you on your feet. His name was Cade. The other two were River and Ash. They brought me food, clean water, herbs for the infection. They taught me how to move through the dead lands without being seen. How to hunt. How to fight properly, not just the wild flailing I'd done before. You fight like an Omega, Cade said on the third day, watching me struggle through a training drill. All emotion, no strategy. I am an Omega, I shot back, panting. Not anymore, he said. Out here, there are no ranks. There's only survival. And you don't survive by playing by their rules. He taught me how to use my size against larger opponents. How to read body language. How to kill quickly and quietly. River taught me how to track. Ash taught me how to disappear. And every night, I went back to my cave and healed myself. Slowly, carefully, I grew stronger. But the brand still burned. On the night of the full moon, the third night after my exile, I sat by the stream in my cave, staring at my reflection in the water. The Omega symbol glowed faintly red on my collarbone. My face was thinner, harder. My eyes looked different. Older. Colder. I barely recognized myself. And then the light changed. The cave filled with silver light, so bright I had to shield my eyes. The air grew thick, heavy with power. I tried to stand, to run, but my body wouldn't move. And then I saw her. A woman stepped out of the light. She was impossibly beautiful, ageless, with long silver hair that floated around her like she was underwater. Her eyes were the color of the full moon, glowing and ancient. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of starlight itself. I knew who she was immediately. Every wolf did. We grew up hearing stories about her. Selene. The moon goddess. I tried to bow, to kneel, but she raised a hand. Don't, she said, her voice like music and thunder at once. You've knelt enough, Tatcha Jones. She moved closer, her bare feet not quite touching the ground. I have watched you suffer, she said softly. I have watched you bleed and break and still refuse to die. And I have seen enough. Why are you here? I whispered. Because an injustice was done, she replied. Because my children are not meant to treat each other this way. Because the bond one created between you and Whitemore was rejected, and now there are consequences. My heart stopped. The bond? She nodded. Whitemore is your fated mate. The bond has existed since your 18th birthday. You felt it. You've always felt it. But he never looked long enough to see. I shook my head. That's not possible. Alphas don't mate with Omegas. It doesn't happen. It does, she said gently. More often than you think. But alphas are taught pride. And pride makes them blind. She reached out and touched my collarbone, right over the brand. I flinched, expecting pain, but instead I felt warmth. Comfort. When he branded you, she said, her voice heavy with sorrow, he didn't just mark your skin. He rejected the bond. And in doing so, he cursed himself. Cursed his pack. Cursed everyone who stood silent and let this happen. What kind of curse? She stepped back, and suddenly I saw visions in the silver light. The Silvercrest pack, my pack, wilting like dying flowers. Crops failing. Wolves falling ill. White himself, doubled over in pain, his wolf tearing him apart from the inside. The bond is sacred, Selene said. To reject it, to harm your mate, is to harm yourself. His wolf knows the truth, even if he doesn't. And now it's destroying him from within. How long? I asked. How long does he have? 3 moon cycles, she said. By the third full moon, he will be too weak to function. His beta will suffer the same fate, for he stood beside White and did nothing. And the pack will continue to wither until they all understand the cost of their cruelty. I stared at her, my mind racing. So he's dying. They're all dying. Because of what they did to me. She nodded. Unless you return and forgive him. Unless you accept the mate bond and heal what was broken. I laughed, bitter and harsh. You want me to forgive him? After everything he did? I want nothing, she said calmly. This is your choice, Tatcha. You can return, save them all, become the Luna you were meant to be. Or you can stay here, let the curse run its course, and watch them fall from a distance. And if I choose to let them suffer? I asked. What happens to me? You survive, she said simply. You grow stronger. You build a life here among the rogues. But you will never have the mate bond. You will never know what it's like to be truly whole. I looked down at my hands, scarred and calloused. Whole? I'm not whole now. They broke me. They tried, Celine corrected. But you're still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. That's not broken, child. That's resilience. She touched my brand again, and this time, the pain vanished. The red glow shifted, turned silver, like moonlight had been poured into the scar. I've marked you, she said. This is no longer a symbol of shame. It's a symbol of my favor. When you're ready, when you've decided what you want, return to Silvercrest. Or don't. The choice is yours. Wait, I said desperately. What should I do? What's the right answer? She smiled sadly. There is no right answer, Tatcha. Only the one you can live with. She started to fade back into the light. But I will tell you this, forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. Justice and revenge keep you alive. Forgiveness sets you free. And then she was gone. The silver light faded. The cave was dark again, except for the faint glow of my brand. I sat there for a long time, staring at it. The Omega symbol, now silver instead of red. A mark of shame transformed into something else. Something powerful. And I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not yet. Not until I was ready. Not until White Moore came crawling to me and proved he understood what he'd done. 3 moon cycles? Fine. He could suffer. He could search. He could break. And when he finally found me, when he finally fell to his knees, I would look him in the eyes and decide if he was worth saving. I walked out of that cave the next morning, stronger, harder, silver light glowing faintly from my brand. Cade saw me and stopped dead. What happened to you? He asked, his eyes wide. I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. I met the moon goddess. And she gave me a choice. He waited. I'm not going back, I said. Not yet. I'm going to train. I'm going to get stronger. And when the Alpha comes looking for me, and he will, I'm going to make him beg. Cade grinned, wild and fierce. Now that's the kind of Omega I can follow. And so I stayed. I trained with the rogues. I honed my healing power until I could mend broken bones, cure infections, bring wolves back from the brink of death. I learned to fight like a warrior, not like prey. I grew my hair long and wild. I stopped flinching. I stopped apologizing. The rogues started calling me the Silver Omega. A legend. A wolf who was cast out and came back stronger. And in Silvercrest, White Moore was falling apart. I didn't see what was happening in Silvercrest firsthand. But Cade had contacts, rogues who traded with pack members on the borders. And word travels fast in the wolf world. By the end of the first moon cycle, the reports started coming in. The crops were dying. Fields that had been green and lush for generations turned brown and brittle overnight. Livestock fell sick. The pack stores, carefully maintained for winter, began to rot. White called in experts, agricultural specialists, veterinarians. None of them could explain it. There was no blight, no disease, no rational cause. It was the curse. But he didn't know that yet. By the second moon cycle, the wolves themselves started falling ill. It began with exhaustion. Packmates who'd been strong and healthy suddenly couldn't get out of bed. Their wolves became sluggish, unresponsive. Healers tried everything, but nothing worked. Then the children stopped shifting. Young wolves who should have been learning control, experiencing their first shifts, remained trapped in human form. Their wolves were silent. Dormant. Panic spread through the pack. And White? White was suffering most of all. His wolf, the powerful alpha wolf that had always been his strength, turned on him. It refused to obey. It forced partial shifts at random, leaving him trapped between forms, in agony. It filled his mind with images of me, screaming as the brand burned into my skin. He couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Couldn't function. His beta, Garrett, started having the same symptoms. His wolf attacked him from within, tearing at his sanity. Vivian, his mate, watched in horror as her husband deteriorated. Good, I thought when I heard. Let them all suffer. But there was one more piece of the curse I didn't know about yet. White started having dreams. Vivid, horrible dreams where he saw the truth. In his dreams, he saw me fighting the rogues. He saw me healing the children. He saw me carrying them home, bleeding and broken. He saw Vivian lying, manipulating evidence, poisoning the pack against me. He saw everything. And every dream ended the same way, with him pressing the branding iron into my skin while I whispered, "You'll regret this." He'd wake up screaming my name. By the time the third moon cycle began, White knew. He didn't know about the curse yet, didn't know about the moon goddess. But he knew the truth about what I'd done. His wolf had shown him. Over and over and over. And the guilt was eating him alive. He tried to tell the pack. Called an emergency council meeting, stood before them, and confessed. I was wrong about Tatcha Jones, he said, his voice raw. She didn't kidnap those children. She saved them. Vivian lied. I branded an innocent wolf. The room erupted in chaos. Vivian screamed denials. Garrett, still loyal to his mate, tried to defend her. The elders demanded proof. The children, White said desperately. Bring the children. Let them testify again, properly this time. They did. And this time, without the fear and trauma clouding their words, the truth came out. The lady with dark hair saved us, the oldest girl said, tears streaming down her face. She fought the bad wolves. She carried us home. We tried to tell you before, but nobody listened. The boy nodded frantically. She didn't hurt us. She helped us. Why did you hurt her? The youngest one, the little girl I'd healed, looked directly at White with her big, innocent eyes. I liked her. She was nice. Why did you make her go away? The room went silent. White stood there, the truth crashing down on him, and felt something inside him break. Not his body. His soul. Vivian was dragged away, still screaming. She was exiled, cast out just as I had been. Garrett, torn between his mate and his alpha, eventually followed her into the dead lands. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. White issued orders immediately. Find Tatcha Jones. Search the dead lands. Bring her home. I don't care what it takes. Search parties went out every day for weeks. They combed the forests, the caves, the rogue camps. They found nothing. Because I didn't want to be found. On the night of the third full moon, White collapsed. He was in his chambers, alone, when the pain became too much. His wolf was tearing him apart from the inside, punishing him for what he'd done to me. He fell to his knees, blood dripping from his mouth, his vision going dark. And that's when she appeared to him. Selene, the moon goddess, materialized in his room in a flood of silver light. White tried to stand, to show respect, but he couldn't move. You branded your fated mate, she said, her voice cold as winter. You rejected the sacred bond one created. You burned the wolf destined to stand beside you and rule with you. White's eyes went wide. Fated mate? No. That's not possible. She's an Omega? Selene interrupted. And you're an Alpha. So blinded by hierarchy and pride that you couldn't see what was right in front of you. She showed him everything. The mate bond, shimmering and golden, that had existed between us since my 18th birthday. The pull I'd felt toward him for years. The way he'd ignored it, dismissed it, blocked it out because acknowledging an Omega as a mate was beneath him. She showed him the curse. His suffering. The pack's suffering. All of it because he'd harmed his fated mate. You have until the end of this moon cycle, Selene said, her voice echoing through his chambers. Find her. Kneel before her. Beg for her forgiveness. Not because I command it. Not because your pack is dying. But because you finally understand the depth of what you've done. And if I don't? White rasped, blood still on his lips. Then you die, she said simply. You, your beta, and everyone who stood silent while injustice was done. The curse will consume you all. She leaned closer, her moon-bright eyes boring into his. But here's the truth, Alpha White Moore. Even if you find her, even if you grovel at her feet, the choice is hers. Not yours. Not mine. Hers. She can choose to save you. Or she can choose to watch you burn. And after what you did to her, both choices would be justified. She began to fade. You branded her as a criminal for saving children. You cast her into the dead lands to die. You rejected the bond that would have made her your equal. Now you get to learn what it feels like to be powerless. To be judged. To be found wanting. And then she was gone. White collapsed completely, gasping for air. Around him, his chamber felt like a tomb. Silent. Suffocating. Dead. He managed to crawl to his desk, pull out paper and ink with shaking hands, and write orders. Cancel everything. Cancel all pack business, all meetings, all responsibilities. He was going into the dead lands. Alone. And he wasn't coming back until he found me. Or until he died trying. His second-in-command, a wolf named Trent, tried to stop him. Alpha, you can't go out there alone. You're too weak. Take a search party. Take warriors. No, White said, his voice hoarse but firm. This is my mistake. My sin. I go alone. Trent stared at him. You're going to die out there. White looked at him with hollow eyes. Then I die. But I'm not coming back without her. He left at dawn, carrying nothing but a single canteen of water and a knife. No supplies. No backup plan. He walked through the pack gates into the dead lands, and he didn't look back. The first day, he made it maybe 5 miles before collapsing. His wolf was too weak to shift. His body was failing. He lay on the forest floor, staring up at the canopy, and whispered my name like a prayer. Tatcha. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Rogues found him on the second day. 3 of them, all armed, all hungry. They circled him like vultures. You're that Alpha, one of them said, recognition dawning. The one who cast out the Silver Omega. White looked up at them, too weak to fight. If you're going to kill me, do it. I deserve it. The rogues exchanged glances. One of them laughed. We're not going to kill you. That's too easy. He crouched down. You're going to suffer a lot more if you keep looking for her. Where is she? White asked desperately. Please. I need to find her. Why? The rogue asked. So you can brand her again? Cast her out again? No, White said, his voice breaking. So I can tell her she was right. About everything. The rogue studied him for a long moment. Then he stood. If you want to find the Silver Omega, you'll have to earn it. Survive the Dead Lands. Prove you're not the same arrogant alpha who threw her away. Maybe then she'll let you see her. And they left him there. White dragged himself to his feet and kept walking. For 2 more weeks, he searched. He survived on water from poisoned streams, berries that made him sick, small game he could barely catch. He fought off rogues with his bare hands. He nearly died 3 separate times. And through it all, he whispered my name. An apology. A plea. A prayer. Back in my cave, I knew he was coming. Cade brought me reports every few days. The Alpha is in the western sector. He looks half dead. He's asking everyone about you. Good, I said coldly. Let him suffer. But something in my chest was pulling. The mate bond, even broken and rejected, still existed. And it was tugging at me, telling me he was close. Telling me he was dying. I ignored it. On the day of the final full moon, the last day before the curse would become permanent and fatal, White collapsed at the entrance to my cave. I was inside, sitting by the stream, when I felt it. A presence. Weak, barely alive, but unmistakable. I walked to the entrance and found him there, face down in the dirt, his breathing shallow. He looked nothing like the powerful alpha who'd branded me. His clothes were torn and filthy. His hair was matted with blood and dirt. His skin was gray, sickly. He'd lost at least 30 pounds. He was more corpse than wolf. I stood over him, arms crossed, and waited. After a long moment, he stirred. His eyes opened, unfocused, and found me. They widened. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. His throat was too dry, his body too broken. I didn't move to help him. I just stood there, watching him suffer. Finally, with what looked like his last bit of strength, he pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. Blood dripped from his mouth onto the ground. His whole body shook with the effort. And then, slowly, painfully, he lowered his head. Submitting. Surrendering. An alpha, bowing to an omega. I'm sorry, he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I was wrong. About everything. I didn't respond. He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. The kind you can't fake. The kind that come from a soul that's been shattered. You saved those children, he continued, each word an effort. Vivian lied. I didn't listen. I didn't even try to hear your side. I branded you. I cast you out. I rejected you. His voice cracked. I rejected my own mate. So you know, I said flatly. The goddess told you. He nodded. But I knew before that. My wolf showed me. Every night, I saw what really happened. I saw you fighting for them. I saw you bleeding for them. I saw you carrying them home. And I saw myself burning you for it. Good, I said coldly. I hope those images haunt you forever. They will, he said. They do. He coughed, more blood. I'm dying, Tatcha. The curse is killing me. Killing the pack. And I know I have no right to ask, but, his voice broke completely. Please. Please forgive me. Not for my sake. For theirs. They don't deserve to die because of my mistake. I stared down at him, this broken alpha, this man who'd destroyed me, and felt nothing but cold fury. You want me to save them? I asked quietly. The pack that stood and watched while you branded me? The pack that cheered when I was cast out? The pack that never once questioned whether I might be innocent? White closed his eyes. You're right. They don't deserve your mercy. He opened them again. But the children do. The innocents. They weren't there. They didn't know. I felt something twist in my chest. The children. Always the children. And what about me? I asked, my voice rising. What about what I deserve? I saved 3 lives, and you branded me as a thief. You exiled me to die. You rejected the mate bond. You destroyed everything I was. And now you come crawling back because you need me? Yes, he said simply. And I hate myself for it. I hate that I'm asking you to save people who don't deserve it. I hate that my last act as Alpha is begging an Omega for mercy. But I'm doing it anyway. His tears fell freely now. Not because the pack is dying. Not because I'm dying. But because I finally understand what I did to you. And if I die without telling you that, without you knowing that I see you, all of you, then I deserve every bit of this suffering. I stood there, trembling with rage and pain and something else I couldn't name. The mate bond pulled at me, screaming to help him, to save him, to forgive him. But I wasn't ready. You want forgiveness? I said, my voice shaking. You want me to come back and save everyone? He nodded weakly. Then here's my condition, I said. You're going to live. I'm going to heal you, not because I forgive you, but because you don't get to die and escape this. You're going to live and face what you did. I knelt beside him, placed my hands on his chest. Silver light poured from my palms, from the brand on my collarbone. I channeled every bit of power I had into him, forcing his body to heal, forcing his wolf to stabilize. He gasped, his back arching as the healing took hold. The gray color left his skin. His breathing steadied. His wounds closed. But I wasn't done. You're going to return to Silvercrest, I continued, my voice hard. And you're going to tell them everything. The whole truth. How you condemned an innocent wolf. How you rejected your fated mate. How your pride nearly killed them all. You're going to make them understand the cost of their cruelty. White nodded frantically. I will. I swear it. And then, I said, my eyes locking onto his, you're going to step down as Alpha. His eyes went wide. What? You heard me, I said. You're going to give up your position. You're going to let the pack choose new leadership. Someone who won't let prejudice blind them. Someone who will listen to Omegas, to the weak, to the voiceless. But, he started. No buts, I interrupted. You want my forgiveness? You want me to save your pack? That's the price. Your throne. Silence. White stared at me, processing what I'd just asked. I could see the conflict in his eyes. The Alpha in him fighting against the idea. The wolf who'd been raised to rule, to dominate, to never surrender power. But then something changed. His shoulders dropped. His eyes cleared. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. If that's what it takes. I pulled my hands away from him, the healing complete. He sat up slowly, testing his renewed strength. You mean it? I asked, not trusting him yet. He nodded. I'll do it. I'll tell them everything. I'll step down. He looked at me with something like wonder. You're right. I'm not fit to lead. Not after what I did. I stood up, backing away from him. Good. Then do it. Save your pack. And don't come looking for me again. Wait, he said desperately. Please. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know I have no right. But, he struggled to find the words. The mate bond. You feel it too, don't you? I did. I'd always felt it. Even now, broken and rejected as it was, I felt the pull toward him. But I wasn't going to admit that. It doesn't matter, I said coldly. You made your choice when you branded me. I know, he said. But if I could have a second chance, if I could prove to you that I've changed, that I see you now, he took a step toward me. Would you ever consider? No, I said firmly. Go home, White. Save your pack. Live with what you've done. That's all you get. And I turned and walked back into my cave, leaving him standing there alone. I heard him leave a few minutes later. Heard his footsteps retreating through the forest. Heard the silence that followed. And only then, when I was sure he was gone, did I let myself cry. Not because I'd lost him. Not because I'd given up the mate bond. But because for the first time in my life, I'd had power. I'd had a choice. And I'd used it to demand justice. The moon goddess appeared that night, just as I was falling asleep. She stood at the entrance to my cave, glowing softly, a sad smile on her face. You didn't forgive him, she said. It wasn't a question. No, I replied. I didn't. She nodded. That was your right. No one can force forgiveness. Not even me. So the pack is still cursed? I asked. No, she said. You healed him. You saved them. The curse is broken. But I didn't forgive him, I repeated, confused. Forgiveness and mercy are different things, child, she said gently. You showed mercy by healing him, by saving the innocents. But forgiveness? That's something deeper. Something that takes time. Maybe you'll give it to him someday. Maybe you won't. Either way is acceptable. She started to fade. But know this, Tatcha Jones. You are no longer the Omega who was cast out. You are the Silver Omega. The one who survived. The one who chose justice over revenge. The one who decided her own fate. And with that, she was gone. I didn't go back to Silvercrest. Not right away. I stayed in the Dead Lands with the rogues. Cade and the others had become more family to me than my old pack ever was. We built something there, in the wilderness. A haven for the cast-outs, the unwanted, the wolves who didn't fit into pack society. We called it the Free Lands. Word spread quickly. Rogues from all over came to us, seeking refuge. Omegas who'd been abused, wolves who'd been exiled unjustly, anyone who needed a second chance. I became their leader. Not because I demanded it. But because they chose me. The Silver Omega who'd survived what should have killed her. And I built something better than what I'd left behind. A community where rank didn't matter. Where strength was measured by character, not bloodline. Where no one was disposable. Meanwhile, in Silvercrest, White kept his promise. He called a pack meeting, stood before everyone, and confessed everything. The lies. The false accusations. The branding of an innocent wolf. The rejection of his fated mate. The curse that had nearly killed them all. The pack was in shock. Some refused to believe it. Others demanded Vivian be hunted down and executed. Still others fell to their knees, ashamed of their silence. And then White did the unthinkable. He stepped down as alpha. I'm not fit to lead you, he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. I let prejudice and pride blind me. I condemned an innocent wolf and nearly destroyed us all. You deserve better. He appointed Trent, his former second, as interim alpha until the pack could vote on new leadership. And then he left the alpha house, moved into a small cabin on the edge of the territory, and lived like a regular pack member. No title. No power. Just another wolf trying to atone. I heard all of this through Cade's contacts. Heard that White had changed completely. That he worked in the fields alongside the Omegas. That he volunteered at the pack clinic. That he advocated for changes to pack law, pushing for equality and justice. Some people said he was trying to earn his way back into power. But those who watched him closely saw the truth. He wasn't trying to reclaim anything. He was trying to become someone worthy of what he'd lost. 6 months after I'd healed him in my cave, he showed up at the border of the free lands. He didn't try to enter. Didn't demand to see me. He just stood there, at the edge of my territory, and waited. Cade found him first. The Alpha is here, he told me, his expression unreadable. Says he wants to talk to you. Says he'll wait as long as it takes. I didn't go out to see him. Not that day. Or the next. Or the day after that. He waited for a week. Camping at the border. Sleeping on the ground. Eating whatever he could catch. Just waiting. On the 8th day, I walked out to see him. He was sitting by a small fire, looking thinner than before but healthy. Stronger. He stood up when he saw me, but he didn't approach. Just waited for me to come to him. I stopped 10 feet away, arms crossed. You have 5 minutes. He nodded. I came to tell you that I kept my promise. I stepped down. The pack is voting on new leadership next month. They're considering an Omega for the position. Someone named Iris. Do you know her? I did. Iris was older, wise, a natural healer. She would be a good Alpha. That's good, I said neutrally. And, White continued, his voice steady, I came to tell you that I understand now. Why you couldn't forgive me. Why you shouldn't forgive me. I destroyed you. And no amount of apologies or changes can undo that. So why are you here? I asked. Because I wanted you to see that I meant what I said, he replied. I'm not the same Alpha who branded you. I've spent every day since trying to become someone different. Someone better. Someone who actually deserves the title of your mate, even if I never get to claim it. I studied him. He looked sincere. Broken, yes, but sincere. What do you want from me, White? Nothing, he said simply. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. All of you. And I'm sorry it took losing you to learn how. Silence stretched between us. I'm not coming back, I said finally. To Silvercrest. To you. I've built something here. Something real. And I'm not giving it up. He nodded. I know. And you shouldn't. What you've built here, the free lands, it's incredible. It's what pack life should have always been. Then why are you still standing here? I asked. Because, he said, his voice soft, even if you never forgive me, even if you never want to see me again, I needed you to know that you were right. About everything. And you changed me. Not the curse. Not the goddess. You. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. 5 months from now, I said slowly, on the next full moon, come back here. We'll talk again. Maybe. His eyes lit up with hope. Really? Maybe, I repeated firmly. Don't make me regret this. I won't, he said. I swear it. And then I turned and walked away, back into the free lands, back to my pack. Because that's what they were now. My pack. My family. My choice. White kept coming back. Every full moon, he'd appear at the border, and we'd talk. Not about the mate bond. Not about the past. Just about life. About the changes happening in both our territories. About the future. Slowly, over months, the anger inside me began to ease. Not disappear. But soften. Like a wound that was finally starting to heal. And one night, a full year after he'd first branded me, he asked me a question. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I looked at him, at this man who'd destroyed me and then spent a year rebuilding himself, and I gave him an honest answer. I don't know, I said. Maybe someday. But it won't be because you earned it. It'll be because I choose to let go of the anger. For me. Not for you. He nodded. That's fair. And that was enough. For both of us. If you've stayed with me this far, if you've felt every moment of this journey from betrayal to survival to something like peace, then you're part of my pack now too. Hit that subscribe button and join the free lands, because this story, my story, isn't about a happily ever after. It's about justice, about choosing yourself, about refusing to stay broken just because someone tried to break you. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have forgiven him? Or would you have let him suffer forever? Because honestly, some days I still don't know the answer. But I'm learning that maybe that's okay. Maybe survival isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the strength to ask the questions. This is Tatcha Jones, the Silver Omega, signing off. And remember, they can brand your skin, but they can never brand your soul. The end.